Welcome to Biology Made Easy. What are the characteristics that put plants into one group? Three main characteristics. They are all eukaryotic and all multicellular. They all have cell wall of cellulose. They all have chlorophyll or chloroplast to photosynthesis. Let's look at how plants are classified. The phyla or divisions of the plant kingdom, we have algae. Green algae is Chlorophyta, brown is Phylum Phyophyta, red is Phylum Rhodophyta. Then we have Bryophytes, Phylum Bryophyta, Lycopods, Phylum Lycodophyta, Ferns, Phylum Phylloxenophyta or Pteridophyta, Conifers, Phylum Coniferophyta, Cycads, Phylum Cycadophyta, Angiosperms, Phylum Angiospermophyta. Now, the algae and the bryophytes are non-vascular plants. We'll explain what non-vascular are. Then the rest, lycopods, ferns, conifers, cycads, angiosperms are vascular plants. Now, what are non-vascular plants? They are plants that do not have conducting tissues like xylem and phloem. All right, so these plants are very small and thin, like algae and bryophytes. They are very thin, and so that substances easily move through by diffusion, so they don't need any vascular system. The rest are vascular plants because they are multicellular, they are huge, complex. So diffusion alone cannot supply all the needed nutrients. And so they have vascular systems like pipes that supply the nutrients and also take away waste from the cells. And when the pipes that are vascular tissues take the substances to the cells, then diffusion can take place. So that is vascular plants. Then when we look at the vascular plants, all right, then you have conifers and cycads and angiosperms, which are said to be spermatophyta. They are seeded plants. These seeded plants have seeds, but then conifers and cycads are also said to be naked seeds, they have naked seeds. Then angiosperms are known as enclosed seeded plants. And naked seeds means the seeds are not enclosed in a fruit wall, any wall. The seeds are on leaves. The seeds are arranged in cones, and each seed is on a leaf. Closed seeds are protected in a fruit wall. Good. Now we'll look at the general characteristics of all the different groups of plants. The first one we take is the algae. Remember the algae, we have green algae, brown algae, red algae. Now, what is the characteristics of the algae that makes algae to be put into the plant kingdom? Algae is in the plant kingdom because they are multicellular like plants. But note that algae are simple, all right? They are only at the tissue level of organization. So they have a simple plant body. They all are either filamentous or thalloid. All right, filamentous, just a filament. Thalloid is like leaf-like, and they are just at the tissue level of organization. And then they all have cell walls made of cellulose like plants. They have chlorophyll, all right, to photosynthesize, just like plants. But then they have other characteristics that plants do not have. Like they have holdfast that attaches them
to their substrate. Now, the holdfast is a root-like structure that anchors algae and other sessile organisms to their substrate. Okay, now look at this algae stuck to the substrate, to the rock, very difficult to remove because of the holdfast. So let us now look at each of the groups of algae. First of all, we take the green algae. They are green in color, habitat. Only a few of them are found on the land. They are mostly freshwater or sea water, right? The types. We have filamentous types. As you can see, these, they are filamentous. Then there are thalloid forms like ulva. All of them have their holdfast. And look at how they are grouped together nicely in large clumps, neatly, nice. What about habits? Their habits. They all grow at levels in water where they can have sunlight for photosynthesis. That's these green algae. And then you see that they grow in clumps, large clumps, held by the holdfast. Good. Now let's look at the brown algae, Phylum Bryophyta. They are brown because they have a brown pigment called fugoxanthin, which marks the green chlorophyll. They have chlorophyll, so they photosynthesize. Okay? Now, as they are all marine, there's no freshwater forms. Examples, we have Fugos, Sargassum. Sargassum can grow very huge like a tree. They have air bladders that make some of the parts float in surface waters. Good. Now, we'll also look at the red algae, Phylum Rhodophyta. These ones are also red because they have the red pigment called phycobilin, which marks the green chlorophyll. So they photosynthesize. There are filamentous types. Most of them are filamentous and they have complex branching filamentous body. Very nice and neat, isn't it? Well, they are all marine and they grow in deep areas of the sea. The red pigment they have can absorb wavelengths of light even in the dark regions of the sea to be used for photosynthesis. Well, let us quickly look at the adaptations of algae. One, they have holdfast or hapteron, the fixed system on the substratum to prevent them from being carried away by water currents. And the holdfast is known to secrete adhesive mucilage to assist attachment on the substratum. The algae, are made light in weight to float by various adaptations. They have large, flattened, thin bodies so that they have large surface area to volume ratio. So they are made light. And then mucilage also among the thalloids trap gases to make them float. They also have air sacs or bladders like Sargassum that makes the branches of algae light in weight to float. Algae are flexible, thin, dissected body. This is an adaptation that prevents them from being torn apart by waves or currents. These are thin, flat, okay? This presents a large surface area so that they can trap sufficient sunlight for photosynthesis and also so that gases can diffuse in and out. Algae have waxy cuticle or mucilate coating, all of that to do various things. The waxy cuticle or mucilate coating does one, it prevents excessive loss of water during low tide, that is in algae that are found in intertidal zone. Okay? And then the mucilage on the algae prevents fungal and bacterial growth on the algae. Algae grow in carpets or masses, all right, so that it keeps the filamentous or thalloid forms, it keeps them together, so that those that grow in intertidal zones, they are prevented from drying out when the algae is exposed during low tide. Now, let's look at the economic importance of algae. One, as food for man. They have industrial use, for instance, to prepare algae gel that is used in culture experiments by scientists, fertilizers for crops, shampoos, toothpaste, many things use algae as base. And then algal bloom slow or impedes boat and ship movement. Algal bloom is when the algae multiplies in large numbers and covers the surface of water. This happens because algae reproduces vegetatively and can increase in large numbers. Now, the ecological importance. Ecological importance is the importance of the organism in its habitat, ecosystem. So, algae having chlorophyll and photosynthesize, just as all plants, they absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and respires to produce oxygen. So algae contribute to maintain the carbon dioxide oxygen balance in nature. Every plant does this. Then algae are phytoplankton. They serve as food base of food chains and especially for zooplankton. We talked about phytoplankton and zooplankton in our lesson on the kingdom prototist. So please check. Then the algae serve as habitat for other organisms, which other organisms live and hide in the carpets of algae. Algae checks soil erosion when they grow on rocks and on soil. Then algae cause algal bloom and they cover the surface of water, and so they reduce the amount of sunlight that is penetrating the lower depths of water and reduces the amount of sunlight and heat that is needed by plants to photosynthesize and also animals to keep warm. Now let's look at the phylum Bryophyta, Bryophytes. The general characteristics are they are non-vascular. They don't have conducting tissues. Substances diffuse, move by diffusion through the general body surfaces. Then they are low-growing plants. They grow very close to the surface of the soil, and they grow in clumps, carpets.
It means that you have the plants, they are closely packed, and water, small bits of water is in them if they are growing in clumps. And so sperms can be released from one plant, can be released, swim in that thin film of water and go to where the fertilization is taking place.
And they don't have any true roots or stems or leaves. Good. Now, habitats. They grow in damp places on land, like forest floors or any damp, dark places. Bryophytes, they are said to be Piokilohydros plants because they can dry up in the dry season when there is no moisture or the weather is dry. They dry up, but as soon as water or rain comes in, the dry plants grow again. They come back to life. So they are known as Piokilohydra. Ecological. Now let's look at the classes of bryophytes. There are two classes of bryophytes: mosses, class Musci, and liverworts, class Hepaticai.
The mosses, they have upright stems and spirally arranged leaves. Then the liverworts is flattened, dichotomous branching.
The liverworts have gamma caps, are able to produce spores asexually. All plants, bryophytes included, have two stages: a gametophyte stage, where gameta are produced, eggs and sperms are produced, and a sporophyte stage, where spores are produced. In bryophytes, the gametophyte stage is the dominant stage. This is the gametophyte stage in bryophytes. The gametophyte stage is the dominant stage, the stage you see it very well and big, and is the stage that is producing sex organs and sex cells. This one, moss, is a female gametophyte with an egg. Alright? And this is a male gametophyte that produces a lot of sperms. Now, the sperms will move and fertilize the egg, and as soon as sexual reproduction takes place, a sporophyte is formed, and that is the sporophyte stage of the plant. And in mosses, the sporophyte stage forms on the female gametophyte. The sporophyte stage produces spores, which are released to produce gametophytes. The spore will germinate to form gametophytes, alright? And the gametophytes will also reproduce and go to form more sporophytes. So that is bryophytes. It takes place in both mosses and liverworts. Mosses, the sporophyte forms only on the female gametophytes. Liverworts, the sporophytes form separately. Male sporophytes on male gametophytes, female sporophytes on female gametophytes. Now let's quickly look at structural adaptive features of bryophytes. One, as we have said, they grow in carpets or in clumps in order to reduce water loss from individual plants and also to keep moisture in between the plants for external fertilization. 2, rhizoids anchor the plants close to the soil surface to enhance keeping the plants among themselves. Sporophytes have long flexible stalks or seta to bear the sporangia high up in the air for effective dispersal of spores by wind. Then the spores are light in weight and can be carried by the wind. The moss plant is thin, everything is thin. We have no cuticles so that moisture can easily diffuse in and out and through the plant. Moisture and mineral salts. And the plants are also thin so that sunlight can easily reach the cells for photosynthesis. Good. Now, ecological importance of bryophytes. As we have said, as plants, they photosynthesize, absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and also releases oxygen into the atmosphere, thereby assisting in the carbon dioxide oxygen balance in nature. Then as plants, they form the base of many food chains, all right, food for many organisms. Then carpets of Bryophytes check soil erosion. Now, mosses tend to be very hardy plants, so they tend to be one of the first or pioneer colonizers on rocks to assist in soil formation by weathering. Then, because they are very tiny, they are bioindicators. Their leaves absorb mineral salts from the air, and so they absorb pollutants from the air. And so when there are pollutants on the air, they easily absorb them because they are thin. They also lack cuticle, and so they can be used to indicate whether there's pollution in a place, in an area.
We want to move on to talk about ferns. Phylum Phyla. Its compound leaves called fronds. The young leaves are tightly rolled up and uncoil as they grow. It's an adaptation, but it's not only to ferns. Look at other plants like this cocoyam, also have its young leaf rolled up and they uncoil as the leaf grows. Can you talk about that adaptation? The mature leaves of ferns bear sori. Look at how neat they are. Sori are born on the undersurface of the leaflets, and in some ferns along the margin of the leaflets. Sori. So, Rangia. I have tried to use this to show. Look at this leaflet, and the sorus is here. All right? If a cross-section of the sorus is done, this is a cross-section of the sorus. The sorus is a collection of sporangia. This is one sporangium, and plural of it is sporangia. And they have a protective structure. All right? Now, when the sorus is mature, this protective structure is open up. Otherwise, it covers it. All right? So, we see the sporangia. This is one sporangium, how it looks like with the spores inside it. It has a thick wall here. When this thick wall dries up, it curls and breaks to release the spores. I want to look at the last group of plants. Gymnosperms, Conifers and Cycads, and then Angiosperms. Yes, so let's give ourselves some assignment. The economic importance of plants, and then the ecological importance of plants. Had a good lesson today, isn't it? Goodbye and thank you.